Testing 1, 2, 3. Hello, folks. I'd like to welcome you to our council meeting for tonight. Oh, just lost my. Okay, so I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, through you. The lands we know today as the Township of Centre Wellington have been home to Indigenous peoples since time memorial. We acknowledge that we are on the treaty lands and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee. With increasing encroachment by non-Indigenous settlers in the Township of Centre Wellington, the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee could not continue their traditional lifestyle and settled in their villages along the Credit River and the Grand River Valley. These Indigenous nations uphold their treaty rights within our jurisdiction. Today, the Township of Centre Wellington remains home to Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to share and respect Mother Earth and are committed to building a constructive and a cooperative relationships with Indigenous nations.
Thank you, Councillor Evoy. Item number 3, addendums and correction to the agenda.
There are
none. Okay. Number 4, disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Seeing none. And then we'll move to item 5, presentation and announcements. And I'm going to call up on Barb Lee, who's going to introduce us to tonight's artists. Welcome.
Do this right. Can you hear me? Well, thank you, Mayor and councillors, and thank all of you that were able to get out to the Insights show at the museum. It was an incredible show, and it was so great to see so many people come. Before I start to tell you a little bit about Terry, who I hope you've had a chance to enjoy his work back here, I have a couple of other things I just want to announce. One is an Art in Public Places event that's happening at the Sportsplex on May 2nd and going forward for the next couple of months, but May 2nd is the opening, and it's the high school students' second show in the space. So the high school teachers are turning over the existing work, 24 pieces from high school students that are in there. There'll be another 24 pieces coming up. We try to have access to that boardroom periodically so that we can host and invite people to come in and view the work. But it's great work, and on May 2nd, between 4 and 6, there's going to be a student brush off at the same time in the lobby. That means there'll be about 8 students doing painting right there in the lobby on easels. So it's kind of a fun event. And it's just great for us to be able to have an opportunity to show local students work. So just letting you know about that. Last but not least, before I get to Terry, May 16th to 18th, you're going to see a lot of artists around town. We have 76 artists coming to town to paint outdoors. So the Elora Plenera Festival starts. It'll be really busy. And I hope that you all have a chance to catch those great artists. Okay, ads are over. I just want to say how thrilled I am to be able to introduce Terry Galetz to you. Terry was born in Kitchener, and he lives in Elora and has lived here for many years. He's got quite a wonderful history. He's published in a couple of very significant worldwide art books, and his work is unique and different. And I want to quote Terry, but I don't want to steal from what he might have to say to you. But what he does say is what I paint is abstract organic form, or maybe abstract surrealism in my more delusional moments. I'm going to leave it there because I think if you look at any of these pieces, you can just wander into them and have a wonderful time. They're vibrant and fun, and Terry is a fantastic local artist, so please welcome him. Come on up here.
Bring the whole house with me.
Welcome, Terry.
Thank you very much. Mayor Waters and councillors, and thank you, Barb, and the Elora Arts Council that arrange for these shows in public places. And it's, you know, nice to be nice to have a place to show locally, and that's always get yourself out here local. You know, people get to know who you are. Well, I've been part of the Centre Wellington art scene for in the range, I would say, of 40 years. Been in the area. You may have seen my works around the county. For instance, if you've been in the Wellington County Museum, the log cabin and the World War I trench are my constructions. And I was employed there back in 1987 to 89 as their designer preparator when they had gutted the building and were setting up permanent exhibits. And so a couple of them are still there. So after 30, 40 years or so. So they must have liked them. I'm on the local studio tour, spring and fall one. And my works sort of regularly get shown at the Fergus Library as part of the studio tour. The other thing I do locally, which a big part of my life, is I host a music session every Tuesday night, currently at the Cafe Creperie. And it's a sing-around session. We've been getting together every Tuesday night for about 20 years. We started at the Copper Kettle in Fergus, and we bounced around, and I've been wanting to try and keep it alive and keep it going. But as Barb said, I have been published in a dozen anthologies of art books, and very pleased when I got my first copy of the books. These are hardcover, dust cover anthologies that, well, there's my pages in those books. I'm not only showing in as an artist, but I would say I'm a ambassador for Elora, because these books get around the world, and I know that from offers I've been getting because of them. And I always reference that I'm from Elora, Ontario, Canada. So the name is getting out there. What comes of it, we don't know. But it's better to be there than not. Being published in the books, I've gotten offers from around the world, but Europe and the States. I got a gallery out of Soho, New York, get a hold of me and said, we would like to represent you. And that worked out sort of well. And unfortunately, the curator, the owner of that gallery died shortly after but he had been in Soho, but my show got switched to Sussex, New Jersey. And I had asked him what happened. He said our lease came up in Soho, and monthly cost went from $8,000 a month to $30,000 a month. So McDonald's will probably go in there next, But with that gallery, I have a curator who has gotten me shows in New York and in Paris. I've had 2 shows in Paris at something called the Salon des Indépendants. And basically what happened there is around 1884, the local artists, which included Paul Cézanne, Gauguin, Toulouse-Lautrec, Georges Seurat, a number of the Impressionist artists weren't getting shows in the salons at the time. And they said, we'll set up our own thing. So they set up this Salon des Indépendants. And it's been, as far as I know, it's been continuously running for about 140 years. And the song was the first public showing of Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh in 1889. So having been in that show twice now, I feel like Vincent and I are, like this. And so, but you take it where you can get it. But that show is, again, shows that the books that I've been published in do get around the world. What I paid is an abstract organic form, and where this all came from. Part of my education, I spent 4 years at the Ontario College of Art and did get a degree in fine arts from Guelph, and my Bachelor of Ed taught for 12 years in the arts in high schools. But we started one of the projects they sent me to do when I was there is go to the ROM and draw something. So I did that, and I ended up in the mineralogy department. And I thought, oh, this is really neat stuff. So what I did is I sat in front of these rocks and reproduced them, and I came to the idea that organic form, just maybe for its own sake. So I thought I would explore that for a while, and I'm still exploring it. So and how do I get to it where I am now? Each painting has its own evolution. What I do is I start on any new painting. I start with deciding on the size. I've got a canvas here. What I'm going to do on it. The colors that I'm going to use. Well, I have a whole bunch of blue paint left over from the last painting, so I'm going to use blue and add some other color to it. So there's no waste going on. And I decide on the composition. The composition could vary could be somewhat scenic, or it could be an abstract tree, or it could be something that I just do this abstract painting, and then I want to bring it alive. I want to give it some three-dimensional life. And any of my paintings could take anywhere from, maybe 100 hours to 300 hours to do. And I end up doing maybe 10 to 12 paintings a year. I say each, because of being in this for a while, I've had to sort of come up with statements. This is what I have published. After deciding on color or size, color, composition, it comes a game of decision versus reaction. It's intellect versus emotion, and control versus chance. So I don't necessarily know what the final painting is going to be. I just know I've a good start. And probably the first half of the hours that I spent on it, the major concern is composition. And once I've established that composition, then I start to play with it. I see where I can take it, see what I can do with it. And I say each one comes out to be what it wants to be. The image evolves with me interacting with it. There is no model. There's only a history of images that I've done before. And so I just keep evolving whatever I can. I say the work falls under something called autoism. It's a method of painting or writing, but used by surrealists that depend on the emergence of the subconscious images. In chance reactions or accidents to mark making, painting is to some extent freed from rational control. Well, I can't give up rational control totally, but I work with it. I work with what I've got to play with. And the paintings resolve in whatever way they're going to happen, But then people have asked me, how do you know when you're finished a painting? I said, when I can't find anything else to fix. So I've been doing this, for 40 years, and I still keep doing it. Very interestingly, the successes that I've had, there's an interesting comment line in a song by Fred Eaglesmith when he's talking about alcohol and drugs, that fame may take away the pain, but fame may take away the pain, but it don't pay the bills, is the way I happen to live my life. I'm having lots of fun doing it. I'm having interesting things. I can, at 75 years old, I can still have a dream of where I can take it. It's going to happen, who knows? But I just keep going anyways. And so I'm sharing that with you at this point. How did my time go? A bit over. Okay. Any questions?
Questions? Yes. Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, you clearly have been a part of the history of putting us on the map as Elora, and I super appreciate that. I love your artwork, and thank you for coming and sharing it with us.
And literally, I've been published in I think my 13th publication is coming in any time now, and they're all referenced Elora. So, okay.
Councillor Evoy.
Actually, thank you so much. I have a question for Barb around the plein air for anyone who's tuning in. Where will the artists be found, or is there a place where we can look to know where they will all be?
Barb, would you mind coming up? All your good words will just be shared in this room and not shared in. Yep.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks for asking. Yes, they'll be all over Centre Wellington painting for 3 days, including nocturne painting. You'll see them out at night, and plein air is rain or shine. These guys come with whatever they need to wear, and just layers come on and off depending on the weather. On Saturday morning, we are doing, once again, that's Saturday, May 18th. There is a quick paint in Fergus, downtown Fergus, with the beautiful Templin Gardens and all of the wonderful buildings in downtown Fergus. It's a great place for artists, and they have a 2-hour window to paint something, which is then judged, and the prizes are awarded there, and the wet work is up for sale. It's great. It's just a really fun event. People can come and watch and ask the artists questions. We will be having a few demonstration things happening too. Meredith Blackmore, some of you may know her for her wonderful mural work. We'll be doing a few community engagement demos over the time period too, just to keep people busy. But it's going to be a wonderful, fun event. So thanks for asking.
Again, thank you, Cherry, for sharing your interests and your joys over the last 40 years of your of doing this. I particularly like the painting you did right behind you, that one there. I when it came into the chamber here, every time I come in, I look at that one in particular. Something with that registers with me. Maybe it's that landscape architect in my personality. So, anyways, thank you very much for doing your presentation tonight. Okay, so we're going to move down to item 5.2, Wellington Federation of Agriculture, and we're going to welcome Janet Harrop regarding ag food system study. Welcome, Janet.
I have brought hard copies of the study. You have an electronic version of it, but I can pass these out if people want them. Yeah. Okay, so thank you for allowing me to present to Council. And so I am the current past president of the Wellington Federation of Agriculture. Our current president, Barclay Knapp, is in the gallery with me. So he's taking the reign. And but this was a passion project of myself that I did when I was in the president role. And so really looking forward to it. So we have tried something a little bit different this year because we have a bunch of council, members of our board that are going out to local tier municipalities to present the findings of this study. And some of them have not done a lot of presentations in the past. We used some AI video technology, and we took a bunch of components of the study, put it together in a video form. So we're gonna start with a video, and then I just have some points after the video that I'd like to make. So Lisa, she said give her some time because there's several buttons to push.
Making decisions that affect Wellington County's lands and citizens for generations to come can be challenging. To help, we commissioned a research project that unveiled the incredible and unique value we have in Wellington County's land, bringing clarity to you and to your decision-making process. Venture into Wellington County, Ontario, a vital cog in the wheel of nourishment, feeding not just the local community, but reaching out to Ontarians, Canadians, and beyond. This region is far more than a simple farming area. It's an economic powerhouse, generating an impressive $2.8 billion to Canada's GDP. Now more than ever, we must understand and communicate the value the agriculture and agri-food system has for the economy, environment, and society. Wellington County is a leader in field crop production, livestock production and processing, value-added activities, and agriculture inputs and services. Agri-food value chain input retail businesses are distributed across the county, making it convenient for Wellington County farmers to access the inputs needed to operate successfully. Wellington County farmers are pioneers, not just in terms of yield, but also in sustainable farming practices and employment, providing over 35,000 jobs, over 6,000 full-time equivalent positions. Embracing sustainable farming with open arms, Wellington County's farmers are constantly innovating with the goal of improving the soil, water, and increasing biodiversity. This vibrant region, which covers a mere 0.2% of Ontario's land base and 3% of Ontario's total prime agricultural land, represents 5% of Ontario's agri-food industry's total contribution of $56 billion to Canada's GDP. This statistic is worth repeating. Wellington County geographically covers a mere 3% of Ontario's prime agricultural land, yet contributes 5% of the Ontario agri-food industry's contribution to Canada's GDP. This is a testament to the power of innovation, sustainable practices, and food production in Wellington County. Wellington County's agri-food industry contributes 35,943 jobs to the Canadian economy, nearly 2/3 of which are in the food manufacturing and retail portion of the value chain. This equates to $496 million in labor income within farm and upstream jobs. Wellington County's primary agriculture, meaning jobs directly on farms, supports a total of 12,260 jobs, 6,556 full-time equivalent employees. In 2021, Wellington County farms accounted for 5.8% of all of Ontario's farm cash receipts. For every dollar spent on local Wellington County agricultural products, $2.36 of activity is generated within Canada. Wellington County's agricultural sector generates a total of $79 million tax revenue for the provincial and federal government. Soil is a non-renewable resource. 81% of Wellington County's soils are Class 1 to 3. Wellington County is one of few areas in Canada with an abundant reserve of the highest quality soils for growing food. Now more than ever, we must understand and communicate the value the agriculture and agri-food system has for Wellington County's economy, environment, and society. As such, the Wellington Federation of Agriculture, WFA, commissioned this research project to examine one of these areas: the economic impact of the agriculture and agri-food system in the county and opportunities for further growth and development. Whether you are part of our local government or an interested citizen of our county, please talk about Wellington's agriculture. To find out more, scan the QR code to download the full Wellington County Agri-Food System study, Farms, Food, Our Future.
Great. So that was an experiment we tried, and it is much easier to stand and watch a video. So there are a few items, and Lisa's going to bring up the PDF that was also part of the agenda. So a few points that I really do want to highlight, and the fact that Wellington County, and I realize we're Center Wellington
Research
here,
project that unveiled the incredible and unique value we have in Wellington County's land, bringing clarity to you and to your decision-making process. Venture into Wellington County, Ontario, a vital cog in the wheel of nourishment, feeding not just the local community, but reaching out to Ontarians, Canadians.
Yeah. Sorry, my delegation's now 5 minutes longer. Yeah. So when she brings this PDF up there, I mean, I think that the one point that was in the study, and we knew that Wellington County was a agricultural powerhouse, and I know we're in Center Wellington, but when we talk about the agricultural system, it really doesn't see the boundary between Center Wellington, Wellington North, and Guelph-Aramosa. So we really wanted to look at things from a systematic perspective, because when you think of agriculture and you think of primary production, there is still somewhat of a stereotypical crop livestock picture of what that means. And we know in Wellington County with the University of Guelph and several processing and several large feed mills and several large equipment supply companies, that it's a whole system from growing all the way to the consumer and all the pieces in between. And the one part that I thought was quite impressive, again, that Wellington County covers only 0.2% of the land base in Wellington County. And I've had a few people challenge me and say, yeah, well, you've got the city of Toronto and you've got all these cities and we've got, climates in the north that, can't grow as much food. So that it's not really comparing apples to oranges. And my response always is, well, that's exactly the point. The point is that on 0.2% of the land in the province of Ontario, what we're able to produce, because Wellington County, we're right smack in the center of southern Ontario. And because of it, we have almost like a microclimate from the Great Lakes and some of the impact of that. And so we see several of the commodities, 10 to 12% of the livestock that are produced in the province come from Wellington County. And then again, 5.8% of the agri-food chain and 81% of the land in Wellington County is class 1 to 3. And I know Mayor Waters says that many times when there's talk about the land that we have in Wellington County. So the intent of doing this study was a tool for municipalities in the county to use. There's lots of discussion around land use and land policy, and to kind of use this document, because we do hear a lot, explain to me what agriculture is. And so we wanted to kind of put some numbers on paper so that people can understand the amount of economic activity that happens in Wellington County because of agriculture. My thought just went out of my head. So yeah, 2.8% billion of Canada's gross domestic product on 5%, which is 5% of Ontario's agri-food industry total contributions come from Wellington County. So you reference it. This document is in the front inside cover of the study. It's a lot of numbers that we're throwing at you, but they're all in the study in a lot more detail and the process that was taken to get to those numbers. When we're looking at land use and preservation of farmland, which is obviously one of our goals, we do commend the council for looking at intensification targets within the municipality. And really the main way to save farmland is to grow up instead of out. So we do see an opportunity for very complex mixed-use housing, but in that some significant intensification within the urban boundaries so that we can minimize the amount of farmland that has homes grown on it rather than food. So thank you for your time for this presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Janet. Comments, questions from council? Councillor Efoy.
Through you, sir, and thank you, Janet. Just a gentle reminder that I have a motion when the questions are done. Thank you.
Other questions, comments from council? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Welton.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor Waters. Just if there is a motion, I will have to actually declare a pecuniary interest because there will be, if there is a decision coming, because my team did author the report. This is information only. That's why I didn't declare earlier.
Comments? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you for coming. It's always good news to hear of how much we do around here in our agriculture sector. And it really does bring it home on how we work with housing in the agriculture sector and how we have to preserve our land for the food that we eat. I'm not seeing a motion in the agenda, so I don't know what we're talking about next.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment. I was made aware of that. There was a motion coming. Any other comments or questions for Janet here? So I'm going to maybe speak to your presentation, and I'll call it an education piece. I think it's really important that that this is not only for the citizens of our community to really understand sort of the environment we live in, but it's also important for the rest of the province to understand how important Wellington County and Central Wellington is to the rest of the province in terms of the agricultural piece. In my mind, we're all, the top of mind has been sort of the housing piece in terms of how we grow and to accommodate the housing needs of our community. But this has got to be in keeping also with the food needs as well. And I think to a degree, some of this has got lost a little bit on the goal to secure. Realize that the housing is really critical for the province and critical for our growth and critical for young and old and for everyone. But it has to be tied into the agricultural piece. Without food and preserving those lands to grow food, that in my mind is they have to be kept in step with each other that way. This document is really important not only for our community to understand this, the province to understand this, but even for the municipal affairs as well to understand that. We also have to have great consideration for the agricultural piece. And from the economic benefits, and I think you clearly pointed out on this, the economics of this are huge for the province, for everyone, as in my mind is as important as EVs. So we can't forget the agricultural piece. So I know we're all very supportive of this, and also I'm very proud of Councillor Wilton and her involvement with this as well, but and appreciate you bringing this forward to our council tonight. So, any other comments or questions? Hello, Councillor Adams.
Hello, thank you through you, Chair. Sorry I can't be there with you tonight, just not feeling too well, so thought I'd leave my germs here at home. Janet, thank you for being here and always bringing us lots of information. I just actually have a clarifying question, as I'm not there and didn't get that lovely pamphlet that you just handed out. I'm just wondering if that is available in like a PDF copy. If not, I can arrange to get to the township earlier, because I think that it was just the one pager.
Sorry, it is part of the agenda.
I'll have to refresh, because when I do it, I only get the one page.
The full study was shared earlier, but we can certainly reshare the link to the full study. Yeah. And just a comment about what Mayor Waters said. I think one of the things we've been wanting to do this study for some time, but one of the things from the community perspective that really kind of spurred it forward was we don't want to say that awful 5-letter word COVID anymore, but when it did happen, and there was a time where people went to the grocery store and the shelves were bare, it actually made people stop and think about where their food came from. And I think you saw how the system was so efficient that it didn't take long for those shelves to be restocked. But you also it also showed that there is a lot of things that go on outside the urban boundary that people just don't think about. They see the farmland, they see the crops, they see the food. They know they go to the grocery store, there's food always on the shelf, so they don't think about it. So we're hoping that this work will have the general public as well maybe stop and think a little bit about where their food comes from. People want local food. A lot of food we produce is grown, and then it is sourced locally for people to purchase in the grocery store. So I think bringing that all together in one big picture was really important, and I'm very happy with the outcome of the study.
Any other comments, questions from council? Okay. So, Councillor Evoy, you would like to maybe explain what you'd like to do.
Basically, I can read it or I can just tell you what I'm going to do. Would you like me to hold off with Councillor Wilton?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will officially declare. So, yes, if there's going to be any kind of decision making or action required, I would have to declare a conflict of pecuniary interest. As most people probably know, in my professional life, we run a consulting team that focuses in the agriculture and agri-food sector, and my team did author this report. So I would declare a conflict. Right now.
So maybe you'd like to read,
Sure.
what would you like to bring forward?
That the Council of Township of Center Wellington received the Wellington Federation of Agriculture's Agri-Food System Study, which underscores the distinct economic, environmental, and social significance of farmland in Center Wellington for information, and that staff referred to the study during the development of policies and strategies aimed at cultivating sustainable land use and farmland preservation throughout the municipality.
We have a mover on that, a seconder, and then we can open it for questions, comments. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Adams. Okay. Now I open this for comments and questions.
I will always support a colleague here at the table. I think it's important, though, for the public to know these things ahead of time. That's why we have a council. That's why we have an agenda. So I'm just wondering if maybe we could push it off to a next meeting where we have time so our clerk can receive any comments about it, and then it's done in a pure governance way. That's just my thoughts on it.
Probably ask that. No, you could probably ask that if you wouldn't mind if you'd pull that back, and then that way we could deal with it.
It's formal. Yes,
Yeah.
Of course, that's fine. This came to us today, so I did go through our channels with our admin, just didn't reach you.
Okay, so let's deal with this one. So you don't mind pulling that? Yeah, so you don't have to,
Yeah.
so it just, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So, they both agreed that they'd pull that back.
Withdraw the
Yeah,
motion?
yep.
Okay.
And then we would, do we need to have, do you want to formalize that to bring it back, or how would you like to? Okay. Or we could work together, maybe, one could bring it forward and then one can, okay, so whoever wants to go first.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
to defer it to a next council meeting or whenever it can be fit into the agenda to give the public notice to receive this information.
Okay, and then would you care to
I
second
would
it?
like to pull mine back, and I will put it out after we've done public consultation.
Right, so you'll second that?
I will second that, of
Okay.
course.
Any other comments or questions on that? Okay.
No, that's good.
All those in favor? Okay, that's so moved. And so you'll be back again. Thank you. We're now going down to item 5.3, County Council Report. Councillor Steve O'Neill. Welcome, Steve. I hardly ever see you. Not. Welcome.
Thank you. I have no video, but I'm going to get one next time. I don't know how, but somebody will help me, I'm sure. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'm going to talk about Blue Box and the transition we're going to go through in the next, starting on January 1st, 2026. This came up at County Council this past week. Recyclable materials are going to become the producer's responsibility province-wide on January 1st, 2026. When I say producers, I mean the people that make cardboard, plastic water bottles, tin cans. They're going to have to start paying for the recycling to be processed. That's 15 months away. We begin our 6-month transition period on July 1st, 2025. Counties in the final group of the municipalities that are beginning the transition period. Other municipalities have started and have gone through it. When that happens, the producers do not have to pick up recycling materials from the commercial, industrial, and institutional sectors. In other words, our businesses that use curbside recycling services will not be included in the pickup of materials going forward. County staff and council are preparing for this change. Staff have identified 14 municipal downtown areas that the county will do a weekly pickup for recyclables throughout the county. We've identified 560 businesses, and they'll be able to participate and continue have their recyclables picked up curbside. The producers won't be picking them up. The county will be. We expect some of these businesses will not participate as they do have their own collection arranged already, and they don't participate in curbside pickup. So a large person that had a bin from Waste Management or GFL, they won't go back to curbside pickup. Those that do, they'll be provided with a 56-gallon wheeled cart, similar to what you see in the city of Guelph. When you're in Guelph, you see them all over. Collections are currently expected to be scheduled for Mondays. This will be a change from the regular current pickup days. For instance, Elora's Tuesday, Fergus is on Wednesday. And that's going to change with everybody else in the county. Wellington County does not schedule any solid waste service pickup on Mondays as of now. Residences, including those in downtown areas, will not see their blue box program change. They'll continue with the smaller boxes and on their normal collection day. All of the county's waste facilities will also continue to accept recyclables at them. During the council meeting last Thursday, it was discussed that a number of small businesses that are not in the downtown cores of the 560 we've identified, as well as those that would lose their curbside service, as well as those in smaller hamlets. Places of worship, social centers and clubs, small professional office buildings, and the municipal building would no longer be receiving blue box material pickup. When I came in tonight, the post office has boxes out. If we don't pick it up, they would not be picked up because they're not considered a residence. So the county would pick them up moving forward in 2026. So staff are now working on getting further quotes to provide pickup for those businesses in the 14 urban areas that weren't included in the first 560. Another quote for pricing is to be for pickup in smaller communities throughout the county. And a third quote, which we'll report because we've already got the first one for the 560, will be received to do every business county-wide. So somebody on 3 side roads out will figure out what it would cost to do them and make a decision at that time. And these all these quotes will be presented at the June committee meeting. Again, that leaves us a full year to work this out. The changes that are coming will affect the businesses that use curbside collection for their recyclables, but not our residences. County staff and council are working on solutions to the challenges as we see moving forward. And that's about all I'm going to talk about tonight. That might be enough. And since there's no questions, we'll see you again. See you in 4 months.
No, you're not going away anyway there, Steve. Okay. Yeah. Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. You bring forward some really good information. So when you mean the big recycle bins, like the rolling ones that
Yes.
Guelph uses,
Yeah.
Really? So that would be a specific contract that would take those away, I would
Correct.
think.
And that's why it would be done on Mondays.
Okay.
Waste Management is our collector right now that we have as a contractor
Yeah.
with the county. They would pick them up on Mondays.
Okay. And would everything go into one bin or?
Yes. We
Oh.
do a dual stream.
Okay.
The county, as everybody's aware, when the producers take it over, it will go to a single stream.
Oh, I got family members who are going to be happy with that. Okay. Thank you so much.
Well, the problem with the county has done very well with the dual stream because when we sell our recyclables, because they're separated already, we get top dollar value for them. But again, we're not going to be in the recyclable business after January 1st, 2026. So yeah, it's going to be all single stream at that point certainly with the downtowns businesses.
Any other comments, questions from council? Yeah, this is an interesting discussion that we're having at the committee level. Obviously, at some point we'll invite and will involve the entire council, and it's really sort of more a philosophical direction we're going with waste in general. Like it's a big decision that's coming forward. We don't really have the answer yet for the unfortunately for the businesses, but we're working on that. And we know that that's top of mind just because we know how concerned businesses will be once they hear what's, well, they're hearing tonight, what's being proposed. So, but you will, because you're right on the street level with our folks, you're going to be hearing it for so, Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you, sir. Thanks so much, Councillor. I'm just curious. So I see this, I may not be fully understanding. I see this as a real positive. I see this as something that'll clean up our streets, our downtowns that are so crowded with boxes and bags. This should make it a lot tidier going forward. Yeah, my hope is that maybe that's next. But that face says no. Okay.
Well, you never know what will happen, but yeah, it's going to be a challenge to cover all the businesses. For instance, in Elora here, we would be doing, so what the county passed last month or last week, we'd be doing Mill Street, and we'd be doing up here probably to the Getty Street Market. Because that's the real downtown core, right? We're not going to be doing, for instance, the curling club. If they put a blue box out, it would not be getting picked up. A church, the Anglican church, even just over here, would not be getting picked up. And that's why we're going to the next step, is to see what the cost would be to go to those places, because the producers will not pick up those places.
So as a follow-up with the mayor's permission, does this mean you'll be adding more trucks then? Because as we grow and as our communities grow across the county?
Right now, with just doing the downtown core, Waste Management does not believe they'll need to put more trucks on the road. They believe they can get it done in one day because they've looked at the route, because this has been ongoing for a while. The next step might change their minds on that, so.
Councillor McDonald.
With the transfer stations, through you, Mayor Waters, to Councillor O'Neill. With the transfer stations that we have, will they still accept
Correct.
Recyclables?
Yes.
Okay, that's great.
Hopefully not from residents, it's still curbside.
Exactly. Well, we would want it for the businesses if that's the way that it goes, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
They've always been available to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Any other comments for Councillor O'Neill? Thank you, sir. Thank you for your presentation. Okay, we're going to go down to item 5.4, Councillors Committee updates. Is there any updates from our council? Councillor McDonald.
I think we sort of missed it in the last meeting, through you, Mayor Waters. The Economic Development and Prosperity Committee has put subcommittees in place, and they all seem to be pretty defined and working well to go ahead and start some work that will come back to that committee. That's about it. I don't know if Councillor Jefferson has it.
Okay. Any other comments, or Councillor Craddock?
Good news item. The Victoria Park Senior Center had their spring fling this past Friday, and it was very well attended. It was quite the party. And admittance was $15 a head, and the Legion was packed. So I think we probably did quite well for the center itself. And it was a lot of fun. So yeah, it's a good one.
Thank you, Councillor Craddock. Any other comments from council? Okay. We're going to move down to item number 6, delegations. And I'd like to invite Rich Wigmore and Cassie Silverthorne up from the Elora Rocks Hockey Club, and they're going to do a little bit of a presentation for us here.
Hello, Mayor and councillors. If we just give enough space, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow community members and esteemed guests, today I stand before you not just as a local business owner, but as a steward of a vital part of our town's heritage, the Elora Rocks. My name is Rich Wigmore, owner of RT Health Company and Elora Fitness and Performance Center. I was honored to be voted Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2017, and I'm currently nominated again this year. Alongside my colleague and partner, Cassie Silverthorne, we have embraced the challenge of managing a team that has been an integral part of Elora's community since its inception in the 1920s. Initially known as the Elora Merchants, this team was rebranded to the Elora Rocks in 1965, and it has since been a beacon of pride and spirit in our community. The team's longstanding tradition in local ice hockey, including memorable seasons and victories in various leagues, underscores its significant role in our shared cultural and sporting life. When Cassie and I considered taking over the management of the Elora Rocks, we were fully aware of the financial challenges that this endeavor would entail, including significant debts accrued from unpaid ice time by previous management. In an effort to mitigate these challenges and start on a fresh slate, we propose establishing a new business entity for the team, still under the beloved name Elora Rocks, but with a new business number to restart the financial footing. However, we were informed that doing so would mean losing our grandfathered rights to the ice, a critical resource for any hockey team, and particularly us, given the high ice fees compared to other teams in our league. Understanding the implications, we chose to proceed under the existing structure, inheriting not just the team's proud legacy, but also its financial encumbrances. This decision has placed considerable strain on our operations, particularly as we face unforeseen global and local challenges shortly thereafter. The COVID-19 pandemic games to Fergus due to rink renovations in Elora significantly impacted our ability to generate revenue and maintain our fan base, which averages around 300 attendees at each home game. These high operational costs, combined with the inherited debt, severely restrict our ability to manage the team effectively and limit our capacity to invest fully into the programs and community initiatives that we hold dear. Sponsorship dollars, which are vital for our survival and growth, are currently diverted to servicing debts rather than enhancing team operations and community projects. We have organized fundraisers for other organizations, but we have also held events to support the Rocks. We believe that it is always important to give back to others as it reflects our values as a community-focused organization. We have raised money and collected donations for the Food Bank, Team Addie, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and other organizations that play a vital role in our community. Supporting these local causes and nonprofits strengthens our community, which in turn supports the Rocks. Our commitment to giving back is integral to our mission, demonstrating how we strive to uplift our neighbors while also sustaining the team. By balancing our efforts, we aim to create a cycle of support benefiting both our community and the Elora Rocks. The debt associated with the Elora Rocks is a community debt, reflective of years of support from the township, allowing the team to continue its operations despite financial difficulties. As such, addressing this debt requires a community-wide approach, acknowledging our shared interest in the team's success and our collective responsibility in ensuring its financial health. It is important to note that the Elora Rocks are caught up on all pre-agreed debt payments and ice time allocation fees since taking over the team in 2021. Today, I call upon each of you to consider how we can together resolve the financial challenges we face. Our aim is to ensure that sponsorship dollars are invested directly into the team and our community efforts rather than being consumed by past debts. We seek a partnership with all stakeholders to foster a sustainable future for the Elora Rocks, enabling us to expand our community involvement and strengthen our team's competitiveness. Additionally, I want to assure you of our full commitment to transparency and our management practices. If anyone would like to see our financial records, we have no problem showing you our books to anyone and everyone interested. It is important to note that these records begin when we took over the team in 2021, as there are no legitimate records prior. Lastly, it is crucial to express that without a common solution to this debt issue, our personal continuation with the team becomes unsustainable. We cannot in good conscience continue to bear the burden of a debt that is not of our making. If a viable solution is not reached, it may become necessary for us to step back. A decision we hope we will not have to make as we have grown to love this team as players, the volunteers, and fans. In conclusion, let us unite in our commitment to the Elora Rocks. Together, we can transform these challenges into opportunities, ensuring our team not only survives, but thrives as a cornerstone of Elora's vibrant community life. Let's continue to build on the rich history of the Elora Rocks, making it a legacy of pride, unity, community, engagement, and future generations. Thank you for your time, your understanding, and your unwavering support. Let's move forward together, dedicated to the prosperity and spirit of the Elora Rocks. That was all memorized.
Thank you, Rich and Cassie. If there's any questions for clarification right now, we can do that. If not, in item 8.1, the report will come back to council and there'll be an opportunity for further discussions at that, if it's for clarification. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Just on near the end there, you said something about your personal involvement with the Rocks. You might have to reconsider, as you wouldn't. What exactly does that mean? Does that mean just the two of you would no longer be involved?
Just the two of us in regards to management, yes. There's a handful of volunteers that do help us with the day-to-day and like the game day operations. But with us running the team together, I don't see it as feasible to continue while trying to make the debt payments. Does that answer your question? Or we just work around it? Yeah.
Question for clarification? Okay. Yep. Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Waters, have you had to use your own personal money?
Yes. I mentioned being a local business owner, and we do support the Rocks with sponsorship, but also have used our own money to support the Rocks as well.
Okay. Thanks.
Councillor Eveline.
Thank you, through you, sir. To clarify, there are no, I believe you used the word legitimate books since before 21. I'm totally baffled by that. If we had gone into an agreement with this group in the past, how would we have gone into an agreement without books?
Sorry, maybe I should clarify by books. I just mean the only books that were handed to us was access to the bank account where we could see records of like transactions in the account. There was no, I couldn't pull up any information about previous ownership. I did go to Sarah Shannon, the local lawyer in Elora, to do like a background check of the team. And we did find that there was directors, but some of them have since passed. So I don't have access to their records. So by legitimate, I don't mean to like insult the past management. I more so mean they have passed away, and these books I don't have access to. You're welcome.
For clarification, Councillor Jefferson, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Waters. Hi, Rich.
Hi.
I'm quite familiar with everything that you do within the community from your business and personal as well. I'm very appreciative for what you do. I'm just having a question for, I guess, clarification. No real numbers in that were really mentioned with this, but with the existing loan itself, if it were, say, refinanced or we were able to come to something where the payments were reduced, is that something that you think that the Elora Rocks would be able to handle?
I appreciate that, because just allowing us to speak and meet with you guys has been, a 2 to 3 year process to get to this point, and we're thankful to be heard and know that the community and the councillors and mayor are willing to work with us, because we didn't know what next steps were. It was always like our money and what can we do? And just like all of you, we have our own careers and own businesses, that this is kind of just our hobby and passion project. So to answer your question, I think that if it was reduced and we knew the town was working with us, I think that would definitely help. But I don't know what that would look like. It would definitely help because it's less money owed. So yes, it would help.
Councillor Wilton.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Just curious, you said mentioned that we have higher ice fees for the rocks compared to your competitors. Is that what you meant? So
Yes.
could you provide any more details or clarification on that? Because I was trying to figure out over the weekend what the expenses and what the ins and outs for the rocks team is.
Totally. Well, like I understand why the ice time fees are what they are. I'm not necessarily disputing that they are astronomical. We just have access to the other owners and other like teams in the league, and we simply just asked them what their ice fees were, and we just came to the conclusion that ours were one of the highest.
Any other questions for clarification? I think Jen has. Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, Councillor Adams.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Cassie and Rich, thank you for being here. This actually might be just a question for our staff. Or when we get to this item later on the agenda, are we still able to ask Rich and Cassie questions at that time?
Yeah, I think technically no. It's more for questions for our staff. But yeah, if there are questions you need to ask, I think this is the time to ask Cass and Rich.
Okay. A follow-up to that. Aside from the obvious debt that we're here discussing and the ice times, when you're, talking with other organizations, are there any other barriers or difficulties or any other things that we could do as a municipality to help organizations such as yourself that is so heavily dependent on volunteers?
I mean that's a great question. We'd accept all help with arms wide open. I think maybe a little bit of social media marketing and posting that we're accepting this type of help or ideas, or as I mentioned to Councillor Kim, or maybe Councillor Eboy, in the past, the Rocks did have a board of directors and access to more minds and more ideas and just more creativity. And since taking over the Rocks, there is no board. We have a lot of like go-getters and people that are willing to work with us, but we don't have a board of directors anymore that can help us with these outside of our, like, as mentioned, our own careers and businesses.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilton.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor Waters. Just a couple of questions. So I guess I'm perplexed just by the whole way this works. Because my son did play hockey, but we not, for senior teams. So could you just tell me a little bit more about the structure in general? Like, are there an owner of the team? Is that both the two of you? And what age group? Like, what is the age of the players, and how do they pay to play for themselves? Because I'm assuming they're adults. So maybe if you can just give a little bit more of a
definitely
Allura Rock 101.
So Allura Rocks is a senior hockey team. Like as mentioned, they started in the 1920s. It started as mainly a glorified men's league that progressively got better and better and better, and then to what it is today, where it's primarily made up of local athletes, strong local athletes, and hockey players that are within probably 45 minutes to an hour of Allura that have quite amazing hockey resumes. Locals like Charlie Stevens, who played in the NHL. So it's not just like, a men's league or beer drinking league. It is really quite substantial hockey now. The age, I believe it's 20 or 21 plus. Like, it's junior hockey, 16 to 20, 21. And then they, so with the Fergus Whalers joining Center Wellington, the idea would be that they would graduate. Some of their players from here would then graduate to our program. I think you had one more question. Ownership. That's a good question. So I don't really know who owns the team. We've always talked about it being a community-owned team. That's how we've always promoted it. I act as president, and Cass does everything behind the scenes and gets everything ready for game days, and I get the high fives and handshakes. But in regards to ownership, I don't really know who owns it. I don't. I believe it's a community-owned team, but by everyone's faces, I also feel like you guys don't or may not know who owns it. But somebody had to take it over, and somebody there's probably not many people silly enough to take it over, but we were passionate about it, and we were like, okay, how do we do this? And the previous management had done it for years, done the best he can, did the best he could with what he had, and not a ton of help and support. And I could kind of see the Elora Rocks ending. And I played senior hockey for a few years myself, and being in Elora, I wanted a way to kind of give back because of my own personal businesses. Not just COVID, but even before that, we opened in 2015, and the community was so accepting of us, and because of the community provided me and us the life that we have now. And there wasn't a massive avenue from RT Health Company and Elora Fitness to give back to the community, or where I could be a face in the community. And this has allowed us to do as I mentioned, like the Team Addy and stuff like that. So sorry, it's a really roundabout way to say no to being an owner. I don't know who the owner is.
Okay, any other questions for clarification, or even that won't be able to carry forward to the next when we have the presentation? Anyways, yes, go ahead. Just me.
Through you, Mayor Waters, I really appreciate you coming forward with all this. It must be hard. The fact that there's no board of directors or anything, like some sort of governance model. So you never felt that you had a governance model. Okay.
Correct. Every decision that we made was always, we hope we're making the right decision, or whatever dollar we spend, it was to the best of our ability. Like, our hope is to start this off with this clean slate, and then not necessarily a board of directors, but at least a team of people that could assist with decisions.
I just have a follow-up.
Sir Evoy, and then no follow-up.
Thank you, through you, sir. So again, as truly clarification, then first of all, I want to say how much I respect you both for your continued efforts to keep this going. So what I'm hearing is no books, no board, no idea who the owner is, and you want to either ask us to the debt or to make an agreement with you for less. But I don't see a lot of direction. And I'm wondering respectfully, genuinely respectfully, if this has been happening for a few years, would perhaps would it may not have served to create a board so that when you came to ask, you would have just a little bit more clarity? Because I'm feeling really like I'm not entirely sure how. Not that I'm saying no, I just don't understand how we go forward in an agreement with what? Like with two really engaged people who are doing their best, but I don't hear of the board or the owner or the books or all the things that we would need to start a new loan agreement.
I totally, and I'm hearing what you're saying and agree. And some of the questions you're asking and the things that you're bringing up as dilemmas are the same reasons why we are here, because we didn't have that to begin with. There wasn't a team of people because as mentioned, they had since passed, and we took over the team in good faith we took over the team in good faith to, if we decided to do it for a few years or 5 years or 1 year, we just always wanted to leave it better than where we found it. And then trying to, when we look into things, my personal businesses, I've had an accountant and a bookkeeper since day one. I'm not an accountant or a bookkeeper, so I don't pretend to know how to do that stuff. I hand that over. But with the Elora Rocks, I don't know when the last time certain things have been done, right? So in regards to I don't think it's so broken that it can't be fixed, but I think that it needs the right people. And I think that having this meeting, if I said, Councillor Evoy, we'd love to have you on board, we inherited $31,000 of debt, but I feel like you'd be a great fit to join our hockey team and run this team with me. You probably wouldn't give us a high five and say, I want to jump on board, because there's debt attached to it. But if there was a clean slate and it wasn't going to, be a deterrent, it might be, like I said, there's not so many people that would jump into this position like we did. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. For clarification purposes, so you took this over during COVID.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So then we were in lockdown. So ice, nobody was skating.
Mm-hmm.
Since we opened the ECC Center, the Jefferson Community Center now, and your first games really weren't till, what was it, January of 2024?
The 14th.
Here,
yeah,
like on home ice.
Mm-hmm.
What's your feeling on how many people came out to support going forward? Like, do you think that this could still be good?
Yes.
With attendance?
I do.
Okay.
So year one, when we took it over, we were super excited, passionate, and did all the right things, and advertised and had gave away tickets, and the place was packed, and we ended up winning the championship our first year. And then the next year was actually when COVID was a factor, and it limited how much, and when we could practice, when the guys could remember all that, when we, just at different times to come to the dressing room and stuff like that. And then our fan base definitely hurt. Legally, they weren't allowed to be there, I believe. Like at least they had to be spaced out or something. It definitely hurt, and just people weren't as it was uneasy to go out in public at first. Like we were all unsure of everything. And then after COVID, what was it? We moved to Fergus while the renovations were happening, which are amazing. The renovations are phenomenal, and we're grateful for it. And we're excited to be there. But there were games in Fergus, and I had never experienced this. I don't think in Laurel Rock's history they had ever experienced this. There was one game that there was 11 fans, and that was the weekend before we came back to Elora and had over 300. And that was like, it was kind of cool, because I was like, no, like this is Elora's team. Like we do need to be here. This makes sense. And like everybody was saying it. I was like, hey, it's just like 10 minutes up the road. It's like really not that big of a deal if you just, and they're like, yeah, we'll watch it online, right? Because they have access to that. But I do see it, and the league has proven that it's a very like forward-thinking league. It's not. There are a lot of young entrepreneurs that are trying to grow the league, and the finals just happened in Tillsonburg against Alvinston. Both their arenas had more than 1,500 people in attendance, and it was an atmosphere that I don't think I've ever experienced in senior hockey. And it actually motivated me to come to this meeting today. Not that I ever wasn't, but it made me excited because it showed me that what's possible, what we can do in Elora.
Any other comments, questions from council? Councillor Adams.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I applaud you for standing up and taking this on. You had brought up Alvinston, and it was one of the ones that I had looked at to do a little bit of research, again, based on like the governance question that's coming up. And it looks like they have like a full board of directors. They have, obviously with the turnout they're getting as well, they have like, the treasurer and everything in place. Have you reached out to like boards like that to see, what's worked for them? And getting a bit of guidance from those others involved in this group?
Definitely, and I think, although I appreciate you bringing up Alvinston, I think they've done a great job. They were able to start from a clean slate and not have that history kind of, as mentioned. I do feel I have a pretty good relationship with Kyle Goss of the Elora Mohawks. And if we are going to seek advice, we'd probably just use our very own. And we've all seen what they've built, and they have a phenomenal board and a phenomenal amount of volunteers that I think we have that in our backyard. We just go to them.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions, council? Yes, Councillor Craddock.
Thank you, and through you. I own the Allura Rocks. No. The question is pertaining to that, though. Just like the legal frame, sorry, the legal framework of the organization, is it a not-for-profit?
So currently it is a not-for-profit, but I do believe that without doing taxes every year, you would lose your status. And that's another reason, because I can't just go apply for it. I'm not the owner, right? I can't do, I mean, I could probably do the taxes, but I don't know what's been done in the past. And like, I don't know what the previous management or what was there. So, you know, that's one reason. Actually, it's a huge reason why we did want to start off with on a clear slate, so we could reopen a new entity and still, as mentioned, be the Allura Rocks, but have proper books and to make sure we can still have that title or whichever title we choose, just as long as it's above board.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Egoy.
So I think you through. So you haven't been doing taxes or any of that? No. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Thank you, Rich. In terms of starting with a clean slate, because you've mentioned that a few times, what other, like, you need this debt kind of forgiven, and then there's a problem with ice time as well, I believe. So can you just talk, maybe there isn't, maybe can you just talk to me a little bit about what it would take to start with that clean slate and what that would look like from a Rocks perspective?
I personally think that the Allura Rocks, as it is a bit of a messy situation. That what I have presented and know is like we're on the same page. That's about as much as I know. I think that it would be the town's best interest and our best interest to have a clean slate and start, just like my own businesses, start a brand new business as a new entity and make sure everything is done. Like the team's been around since 1920s and it was handed over in 1965. And like I mentioned, some of these people that were in charge of these roles have passed away and are kind of hard to get a hold of. Not because of not. Sorry.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll come back item 8.1 and have a discussion from our staff on this, and there'll be an opportunity for further questions for council. So thank you. So okay, we're moving down to item number 7. Consent items. Agenda items are considered routine in nature and unvoted on collectively. However, any member of council may request one or more items to be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and or action. So I'll read the recommendation first, and if there's any discussion there, then we can go into it. So we have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approve consent agenda items 7.1 through to 7.6. And do I have a mover for that? Or do you want to go? We can just go into the it looks like there's some questions here. So, okay, so let's start with the questions. And Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, I'd like to pull 7.4, Treasurer's Annual Statement, 2023 Development Charge Reserve Fund for discussion. Please.
Question regarding procedure. It's quick. I think it'll help. When we say pull, that would be to actually debate and possibly change the decision. But there's opportunities to ask questions about every single item on the consent. So I just want to make sure we're clear on when people are saying they want to pull versus just asking questions.
It's more related to.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. The only reason to pull it would be either to discuss, debate, or change it.
So you're not pulling, you're just asking a question on item 7.4. Yep. Okay. 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 While we're in this, anyone else have some questions as well on that? Yes, Councillor Wilton.
Yeah, I just have a question regarding item 7.2, council schedule of ongoing work 2022 to 2026. I just wanted a little bit of clarification on the purpose of that report, and like there wasn't much to the report, so I'm just kind of curious why those items were selected and kind of why some didn't have dates for completion. And I believe that question would be for CAO Wilson.
So we'll get all the. Councillor Adams, did you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear what just happened there, but I just had a question actually in terms of, sorry, it was the last one, 7.6, just in terms of how I'm familiar with consent agendas, but a lot of these are for information, whereas there is an action related to 7.6. So I'm just wondering whether would this be classified as I'm assuming you guys think it's classified as a consent item, but I'm just questioning, like, because there is an action there, whether it should be pulled separately.
Okay, so let's, did you want to speak to that first,
No.
Carrie? Okay, so let's deal with, we'll go through the list or through our order here. Councillor McDonald, maybe you can explain sort of what are you looking for again on item 7.4, and then hopefully someone can answer that.
Sorry, I'm just pulling it out.
Okay.
Ear is wavering on this. Hang on a minute.
Maybe what we can do while you're looking at it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We can go to items.
Yep, my question just was about not being entirely clear what the purpose of the report was and why those certain items were selected, and also why some did not have dates for when they would be finished or coming back to council.
Okay, who would like to speak to that?
Want me to start?
Yep.
Okay. This schedule of work in process is an information tool that we use to track unresolved council activity. These items have either been deferred or referred or deferred, or direction given to staff by council. They're items that have been to council and either been deferred, referred. The schedule outlines the activity, the department responsible, and the anticipated date for the item to return to council. If there is no anticipated date, what we do is this: after every council meeting, this report goes to the senior management team for completion, and the dates are completed by the senior management team in time for the next council meeting. But this is just the first one that we've managed to pull together for council's information. It's just a way of just an information tool to track council's activity, so that you see how we're tracking the items that have come to council and have yet to be resolved.
Did you have a further question there, Councillor Wilton, on that, or?
No, that's helpful. It does seem like there's some items possibly missing in that case and some that would have just been coming anyway. But anyway, that's helpful. So I'll keep looking for future ones and we'll see how that goes. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wilton. Let's go to Councillor Adams, 7.6, and then we'll come back to Councillor McDonald. Sorry, Councillor Adams, did you had something to express on item 7.6?
Yeah, sorry, through you, Mayor. It was just a question. Routinely, it seems like a lot of our consent items are items where we're receiving for information, and these kind of regular scheduled reports, which I understand this would be being the operating results. But there is an action in the second portion of the recommendation. And I'm just wondering, like, is this just routine, I guess, that it would just be transferred to the general capital reserve? Or are there instances where we may have recommendation to move some of the surplus to other reserves?
I'm going to... Sorry, Councillor Adams, did you finish on that?
Yes, no, and I was just going to say, like, it is a good news story. I'm glad we're having this discussion. So yeah, no, it's just a question in terms of its placement.
Okay, maybe I'll turn over to Adam there and he can maybe fill in some pieces there for you.
Yep. Thank you for the question, Councillor Adams, and through you, Mayor Waters. Yes, typically routine in nature. Well, we would provide this as an information report with seeking council direction to direct the surplus funds to the general capital reserve, with the understanding that we will bring a report back at the meeting of May 13th with future recommendations and direction setting for the surplus dollars.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then back to you, Councillor McDonald, as it relates to 7.4.
To you, Mayor Waters, thank you for giving me some leeway there. It's just with the development charges on water, those are less? Or am I seeing that wrong? Trying to make heads or tails of it, but it looks like it's less in the development charge collection.
Sorry, on the water side of the PCs, started the year with a balance of 3.8 million and closed out with 4.9 million. So there was growth on the water services side. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, here I thought we were really being great. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions on the consent items? Okay, so I'll just read that again. We have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approve consent agenda items 7.1 through to 7.6. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McDonald, seconder on that. Councillor Craddock, any further comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Okay. Now we move down to consideration of reports. We're back at item 8.1, the Elora Rocks hockey interest-free loan, and a report from Matt Tucker. Oh, yeah, sorry, Matt. You know what? We're gonna take a little bit of a break. We're gonna have a prayer session about the Leafs, and then and we'll be back. Okay, we'll have a 5-minute break. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting back to order. Hello, Matt. Welcome back.
Good evening. Okay, through you, Mayor Waters, the Yellow Rocks currently are in an agreement with the township to pay off an interest-free loan. In the report, you'll see that different agreements have been put in place to assist the Yellow Rocks over the years to help pay off different loans. The Yellow Rocks recently underwent a change in management, and the new management at the time we met up with them were dedicated to continue to pay off the interest-free loan, but want to change the agreement to ensure that this can be done. And that was agreed through with last council. And each agreed to those changes. The management of the Elora Rocks have met up with staff recently and have indicated they're struggling to operate their hockey operations financially. They feel that they could run more successful hockey program for the community if the interest-free loan was eliminated. We wanted to bring this report for information for council to sort of see where things are at. We've provided two options. And also, we wanted council maybe to choose as an option as well. But it should be noted, that if option A is chosen, it would set a precedent for township and other interest-free loan holders, as well. It will have an impact on the 2024 operating budget.
Thank you, Matt. So opportunity to ask questions, comments of staff as it relates to this report. And so, Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Through you, I believe my question would be for Pat. After listening with Rich with the delegation describing the structure, I guess, of Elora Rocks Hockey Club, would any of our community grants be applicable to them to be able to utilize that for something either, I guess, fundraising or not? I know it's usually not capital that they can cover with grants, but I don't know if there's any opportunity there offered.
Through you, Mayor, thank you for the question. The community impact grants are established to give funds every year based on what is received as the income of intake. And there's nothing to preclude them from applying for a grant, but there are certain kinds of things that the grant cannot cover, such as rent and things like that, which would similarly be ice time and if they wanted to host an event as a fundraiser, then they could apply for a grant. But the application for the grant also requires sharing financial records, establishing what kind of an organization they are a not-for-profit organization or not. So there's a few things that council has brought to light tonight that would have to be understood in that application, but we can work with them so that they can understand the application process. And last year, it was a wide open call to everybody to come to a webinar and listen to how to apply for one of those grants. And we will be going through that same process again this year before they're launched. The Healthy Communities Advisory Committee is also reconsidering some of those grant terms before they come, and they'll come back to council again before they are released to the public. Hope that answers your question. So there's nothing to preclude them from applying, but I can't at this point, until I know what they're applying for, tell you whether what they're applying for or how they're applying is eligible or would be granted.
Councillor Wilton.
Yeah, just thank you for your report, Matt. And just picking up, you said this would be a precedent. So I was curious if there's any other organizations or groups who are kind of in similar situations where they're not able to pay their ice times or getting into finding that to be a challenge, or is this unique to the Rocks that they're accrued this debt and they're continuing to have financial difficulty meeting the commitment?
When I say that, I'm looking at not so much the ice, but other loans throughout the township.
With the ice, is there?
With the ice, no. Okay, no, there's no other loans. No.
Pat?
Thanks, Ben. I'm just going to add to that for clarity and full understanding. So every year, people rent facilities, whether it's ice or a hall or anything from the township, and they're expected to pay that off when it's due. And if they do not, then they are no longer permitted another rental. So if another group were in that situation, they wouldn't be allowed to book ice time for the next year. So all of our other ice users have cleared their accounts prior to or the ice or the floor, anything like that, before they go forward and book again. So when the Rocks initially came into a challenge to meet that obligation, we could no longer follow that policy. And that's why we started a conversation with council for an interest-free loan to allow them to continue to rent ice, even though they have not paid off all of their past ice use. So that's how we kind of started, I think, in 2010 and then in 17 and stuff. And this is how we're here today. So I'm not sure if that helps answer the question, but other groups cannot get into this situation because they would be paid off before they can rent again. If minor hockey or Ringette or lacrosse ran into that situation, we would have to sit down with them and come to council to come to an agreement.
Dan?
Thank you. And through Mayor Waters, Councillor Wilton, I think you were asking about precedents, and we do have other organizations with interest-free loans with the township. Our treasurer is required to report those annually to council. Usually happens in February, March. So I think that's the main concern with precedents, is that there would be other interest-free loan holders that would request the same thing.
Let me follow up. I agree. There's two situations. So there's the precedent for the other groups that hold interest-free loans, because I would, if I were one of those groups, I'd be asking if the Rocks can get us forgiveness. Why can't I? And a lot of those groups do have bank accounts and books and board of directors and things like that. So I think that is a really problematic situation that this is bringing forward. But my other thing, the other side of it is the ice time. If everyone else is meeting the payments and doing all that in order, why does this one group kind of get a special treatment? And I realize it was a past council that made that agreement to let them keep renting ice. But I think, Pat, if I understand you correctly, you're saying, say, if the Mustangs hockey didn't pay their ice time, they wouldn't be allowed to book more until they paid it. Is that correct?
No organization can hold any debt owing from the previous season before they book for the next season, regardless if it's ice or floor time or anything. Typically, when that happens, you're flagged and you cannot book anything. And then if you need to, because you're a community organization like the Laura Rocks, then it's a situation where we sit down with that group and figure out how can they move forward with a promise to pay back. And that's sort of how we are here today.
Councillor Eloy?
Through you, sir. This is very difficult. We, as a council, are responsible for making a lot of decisions. There's a lot of hungry people out there. There's a lot of struggling businesses out there. There's a lot of situations that would really love to be able to be gifted that which you're asking for. In my opinion, it sounds like we're going to lose the $30,000 either way. Either we forgive the loan or they fold. Either way, we're going to lose this money. Sorry, am I correct? Sorry, I apologize for the 26,000. Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. The way I see it, the thing that kind of did it for me was learning that they weren't paying taxes, and that's against the law. And if you're not, is it not? If you're not paying your taxes, no. It's not against the law not to pay taxes.
It's I think 7 years. Yes, it is. But I think there was a period of time in which your friends did not do them, and they are able to back taxes.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. My apologies for misunderstanding. The way I see it, we're going to lose this 26,000 either way. And with regards to our staff sharing of the precedents that this will set, I personally don't see how we don't have it in the budget. I don't see how we can. Maybe a fresh start is a true fresh start, starting all over, giving it a new name. And it's also an Elora focus, not Elora Fergus. You made that pretty clear. This is maybe a good time to start over and get that board and get things in place, because if you still have the passion and the commitment and the volunteers, I suspect it would go well.
Councillor McDonald and then Councillor Jefferson.
Through you, Mayor Waters. So when they came on board, this maybe Matt could answer this. When they came on board, was there any other takers that wanted to run the Elora Rocks, or were they at? Do you know?
No, and just with my experience in the past with the Elora Rocks, no, they have struggled.
They have. Okay.
The past 15, 20 years, and it's always been a struggle. They fundraise, and they're a great community group, but it's harder and harder to get volunteers. And I know with each of the different management groups that have come forward, they come to us with a game plan and of how they're going to eliminate that debt. And that's just same with the group that talked to you today. They came to us with a plan, and look, so far they have kept up with that agreement that we have with them, but it's a struggle right now for them.
For follow-up, so they came into us and the debt was sitting there with the township, and I'm just wondering why it wouldn't have come to council then before we would let a new person take over an existing debt from previous. We just hand it to new people, and by the way, here's the debt, and it's now yours if you want to do this. And so I guess that's what we do.
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. And I just want for clarity, the township staff and council rent a facility to ICE users, and the ownership of the Rocks, or who's running the Rocks, is between the Rocks and whoever's their current board at the time. When they changed ownership, or I guess management, I would say, instead of ownership, we'll call it management of the team. We met with them. They were well aware of the scenario they were stepping into. We're a better community with the Rocks, and I understand it's a very difficult decision, and this is why it's here. This is not at a staff level to make this call. We're here to share the past, how we got here, and we've been to council more than once with this conversation, and before this group even came on board. So it's not a new problem, but we'd really like to see a resolution here, and I can't honestly tell you how to get there, except I think Councillor Jefferson mentioned potentially restructuring it so that it is not as a significant burden year to year, but it is still a commitment to continue to pay back. And then there's also been a conversation about the organizational structure and, getting that clarity and helping them with that. So there's maybe you need to defer back or direct back to staff to work with them to meet some sort of resolution that you're interested in.
Councillor Jefferson and Councillor Craddock.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Through you, I'm believing when Councillor Evoy is talking, I'm not sure who this is to, maybe Pat, for clarification, if Elora Rocks folds and becomes a new entity upon itself and has a clean slate. Rich had mentioned that they're losing their grandfathered time ICE price. Okay. Is it possible to make a motion now or to ask staff to work with Elora Rocks to do a refinancing to defer this? Shake out of it?
Our shakeout after we have this finished conversation. So let's keep that in place.
Yeah, I'll keep it in my bonnet that I would like to see something to refinance.
Yes. So we're going to go then Councillor Craddock and then Councillor Adams.
All right. I think I have comments and then possibly questions, but the comments, and these are assumptions. I'm not 100% aware of the facts, but I believe that if you have a not-for-profit or a charity and you're operating without a board and not submitting those financial statements quarterly, the not-for-profit, that licensing will be revoked. So making an assumption here that maybe you're operating without that status right now, does that give us an opportunity to, if we were to eat the loan and forgive it and they were to start fresh, could we write that off as a tax write-off because it is or was given to a charitable organization or a not-for-profit, sorry.
We would have to absorb it through the operating budget, and it would really be basically written off as an uncollectible amount.
Okay. Because I see what Rich is trying to do here, and he's been good with his payments since day one and trying to bring this organization that's been around for 100 years back to life financially. So I do think, like, if we can, we should help in whatever way.
Okay, so we'll go to Councillor Adams first, and then Councillor Wilton.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Again, I just want to thank the Elora Rocks for being here. This isn't an easy conversation, like we've all been saying. There was a comment made about the Maple Leafs right before our break, and this organization has almost been around almost as long as they have, and I think that's really important for our community. It's a community volunteer run, and these things have kind of taken different shape and form over time. What I do see are volunteers and successful business leaders in our community willing to step in and make some change and continue with the good things that come from such an organization. I would be supportive of a motion to defer. I think conversations that was referred to with community leaders like Mr. Goss and different financing options that Councillor Jefferson has brought up, including, maybe some recommendations on what we can do to instill more of a formal governance structure to the organization, and then coming back and finalizing what this contract or agreement may look like going into the future does make sense. So if we were looking for a motion to defer, I would definitely be supportive of that.
Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and this might not be popular, but I'd actually be looking for a third option, that the Rocks should have to follow the same policy as every other organization, and if they can't pay their debts and can't pay their ice time, then sorry, but I don't see why, that might spark the necessity to start a new senior men's team and really get going on that. So I'm kind of confused why. I get the historical facts and all of that, but it's still at the end of the day one sports team in an organization. And we heard from the presentation itself that the fans didn't even bother driving over to Fergus, and Fergus and Elora should be thinking themselves as one big community now. So to me, I'm just not I'm not convinced that having this one sports team in Elora is the be all and end all of importance. And I think we're spending a lot of time on it, that maybe there's a lot of organizations and groups in our community that need a lot of help. So not sure this is quite where our focus should be. So I'll just put that out, that I think there should be an option C in the report. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Evelyn.
Thank you, through you, sir. Well, what I haven't heard is how all these fans and business supporters and hockey players themselves haven't come together to raise this 30,000. 26, I apologize, sorry. I don't know if I'm allowed, but somebody's asking if you can respond in the audience, sir. But I haven't heard, this has been a few years, and I hear from our staff, this has been going on for some time. It sounds like there's a lot of really dedicated community members and players. I'm wondering why y'all haven't reached out to them.
Yeah, Rich, if you wouldn't mind coming up and maybe speaking to that.
And it's one that I have pondered about and thought about many times. I personally took on the responsibility of the debt in regards to the Elora Rocks. The community didn't, the fans didn't, the players didn't. And our sponsors, what I mentioned in my speech, I don't feel that it's ethical to go to these businesses and ask for sponsorship and money from local businesses and say, would you like to support the Rocks and pay off past debt that is from, I think somebody mentioned 2010.
Recognizing that council is those people, that we represent all of those same people. So it's not ethical. I'm just clarifying, not making this sound, I feel like the tone sounds worse, but you're saying it's not ethical to go to them, but we represent them and you want to come to us.
Please.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not allowed to ask someone to speak, so I was just.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
Through your Mayor Waters, in fundraising, I completely understand you not wanting to go to businesses and say, hey, we've got this big debt. From a business perspective, and you run very good businesses here in town, I understand. It's, in a philanthropy lens, it's not a great look. It's just not. Something that came to mind, okay, Jefferson Community Center, would Jefferson want to take that on? But they don't want to take on a team with debt.
Right.
And I can see that. And I can see the hardship for you, for sure. I do fear that if you fold the Elora Rocks as folding forever, that's a legacy historical team that's always been here. I understand that we can't keep going with debt, but I really appreciate what Councillor Jefferson and Adams have really given. If we can defer this so that, I guess my question would be to you, if we defer it and we could help you in some sort of way, do you want to keep the same title of Elora Rocks? Are you hoping to start fresh and new?
That's a good question. And Councillor Wilson, I appreciate your comment as well. And I actually agree with you. I do feel like whichever organization racked up debt should pay off the debt, which is why when we did try to take over originally, we did try to start a new entity. Right. So that debt did exist, again, prior to us. I did pull up some records from my conversations with Sarah Shannon. And because it's a not-for-profit, it's there's no owner and there's just the board. So and to touch on your point about it wasn't taxes, but it was about if they hadn't been done quarterly, you lose your status, which is true, and why it's messy for me to stay up to date and move forward because of that mess. One thing, aside from not being grandfathered the ice time for the Elora Rocks, if we started as a new entity, then all these things would be proper and put in place, and we would, just like my other businesses, they would be in good standing and have the right people in place. I feel like I'm an employee to a business with no management or owner. You know what I mean? And in regards to deferring, and I appreciate that that's potentially an option, except I think it's making today's problem a future problem.
Okay, I'm going to ask why I have you here, Rich. Councillor Adams, did you want to ask a question? Yeah, I'll let Councillor Adams speak, and then I'll jump in after that.
Mayor, mine's not directly to Rich, so maybe you go ahead.
Okay, thank you for that. If we were to look at, obviously we have these options here, and if we were to look at, say, another option in terms of refinancing, sort of looking at coming back to our staff, looking at sort of the numbers and the length of, or the value of the monthly payment, and sort of restructure that, along with sort of working with you in terms of having things placed in there in terms of organization, sort of looking at a bigger view of this, because obviously I think the importance is there's definitely a legacy piece here that I think is important. And I think the legacy is always important, whether it be your history of your community. This definitely has a history. But if there's a way of sort of making that a little easier sort of on your monthly obligations, would that be something that you might entertain? Or we have these two options here and they're pretty definitive in terms of these options that way. Would you be open to sort of maybe something like that?
But I don't think that, I think that it doesn't ignore the point of the debt. And people have brought up not being able to rent the ice if debt isn't paid. And I don't know how it got up to $31,000 if that's the case. If you're not allowed to rent out the ice to someone that owes money to you, and if I rent my gym to someone and they don't pay, I don't keep giving them access. So I don't know how the debt got that far. So I believe it to be not my debt. If I can start the team from scratch and have a good relationship with Parks and Rec and the council and be top of our payments and everything, I think that's my preferred route, is to have the debt waived or forgiven.
Pat.
Do you want us to stand there? Okay. All right. I just wanted, for clarity, every time this has incurred additional debt and not been paid off, it has come to council. So I just want everyone to be clear that this was not something that was done without previous council's awareness. And when we talk about the ability to wipe the slate clean, change their name, and continue with the ice time, then you're dabbling in the facility allocation policy, which I'm happy to explain and work with them as well. But that is why we don't say to a group, you can't just walk away from that name and book yourself next year as a different name and organization and keep your ice time and still have the debt. So I just wanted to understand why staff are kind of bringing it here for discussion, and that's all.
Councillor Adams, you had a comment.
Yes, no, Rich had actually just spoke to a little bit of what I was going to say, is that I think we all have a part to play in this debt. Like Pat has told us today, with our current policies in place, this same thing wouldn't be able to happen. But in past administrations and in past councils, and with the organization of the day, this was all able to accumulate. With the processes in place, I'm not worried about the same precedent being set because of those policies that we have in place today. And we do have an organization that, had made that attempt just before COVID, we lost a lot of volunteers and they weren't able to return. After COVID, we have new management that's keen and able to, kind of try to keep this organization moving, but this debt is still an issue. And they've been making their payments up until this point. And so they have been following. That's why they are still getting ice. But it's getting harder and harder because of this historic debt, which we all actually have a part in, I feel. So I don't think it's just the organization here that is to blame in this current situation.
Just from my understanding, if they were the group was to close doors tomorrow and then come back, and kind of we're done kind of thing, but come back as a group, what would be the possibilities of even getting that ice time again or any of that? I wouldn't think it would be easy. That would be my guess.
Your guess is correct. There is more demand for ice than we have available ice at this time in Center Wellington.
So this is part of your consideration as well. So it's, I think you got to consider this because it's also killing. How old is this group now, Rich? Yep.
Since 1920, so 104.
Yeah. So you're talking about a group that's been around since from, 104, and then also the ability for it to even resurface again becomes really, really difficult. So that's why I asked you if you were open to sort of maybe. The debt is still there in my mind. It's whether if refinancing or looking at the extent of the loan, or is that something you'd be interested in looking at? And it provides you some breathing rooms, because sometimes it's just sort of the day-to-day expenses that kill something. And if you have and it give you and buy you some time to develop some other plans as it relates to putting together possibly a board, possibly an advisement group to work out, and just give you some time to do that.
That if this was my business and it was a Laura Fitness or RT Health company and you're asking me this question, I could give you a very good answer. I think because it is a not-for-profit with a board of directors that have passed, that would be up to them whether they would accept other terms. I know originally 3 years ago, I accepted the terms of taking on the debt. And then in my presentation, I mentioned COVID and the renovations and having different struggles. But I do believe that without having that board in place to make that decision, I'm unsure that that decision is mine.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. I do think we're wading into territory that's not council's responsibility in terms of ICE allocations and management structures of a local organization. So I think we should stick to the question at hand, which is what our responsibility is. And if with that in mind, to me, the precedent is nothing to do with hockey, nothing to do with the Rocks. It's whether our interest-free loans that we have a number of to different organizations, and that if we forgive one, how do we say no to forgiving others in the future? And you're a business person, I'm a business person. We all know that, you want to run your business the way it should be. And so I think asking for that kind of thing and setting that precedent of forgiving loans is what I'm curious, what I'm concerned about. And I think that's council's responsibility, not anything to do with whether they change names or get ICE or not. So.
Well, Councillor Wilden, I wasn't suggesting that at all. I was just suggesting that there's still a debt here to be paid if this was to continue. Just sort of giving some leniency or refinancing on the ability to refinance that while really sort of buying time and figure out this as we move forward, as opposed to, killing this program. That's really where my head's at. I think we would do that with any group that's been in our community a long time. And I've been around on various councils where I've had groups come to council talking about helping out. And we've done that in the past, or looked at refinancing with these groups. I'm not going to mention their names, but I've seen it. It's not an unprecedented that way. But yes, Rich.
In response to you, Councillor Wilton, I believe that if there were other organizations similar to ours that had a similar situation and a similar argument, that they should be heard at the same meeting.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Rich, I really want to thank you for all the information you've given us. It is more information, and I wanted to hear that story for sure. I think as an individual councillor, it's up to me to decide what I feel is best for me and the population of Ward 1. I just feel there's a lot of new information, and I would be happy to defer this and talk about it more. And I really do feel that that is my purpose as a counselor, taking in all this information, because through conversations from you and the public and that sort of engagement, it opens other conversations and ideas. And that's what I'm taking from this. I heard about grants. I heard about, maybe helping with some sort of governance piece or structure, or, and we'll let those conversations happen with staff if we decide to do a deferral. Thank you.
Councillor Evoy.
Thank you through you, sir. I'm sorry, with so much respect, I got the feeling you didn't really want to defer. I got the feeling that you, and I see you nodding your head because every time someone says it, you're like, thanks, but. So can you just share with us, and by the way, you know, what you've done here is outstanding. And as a business person myself, I really hear you and I really respect your approach. I just want to make that very clear. But I'm hearing that you're not excited about us deferring. I think you'd rather we just said yay or nay. Is that correct?
Right. Just delaying payment.
I think
What does deferring mean? Can you just clarify what you mean by defer?
No, so I think actually I would like to look to Councillor McDonald to see what you mean, or y'all, whoever wants to answer. What do you mean by deferring? Because I understand what it technically means. Sorry. I mean, I believe that the delegate is saying he's not interested in us deferring. He's not interested in lowering that payment because it's still going to be there. And that's what I'm asking Rich, not us. I'm asking Rich. Is that correct?
I, as mentioned from the start, taking over this team, I wanted to leave it better than when I found it. And if that's ultimately the only solution, it technically is better than where I found it. But without having the proper paperwork in place and the right people in place, it's not a good foundation. It needs the right foundation to be successful.
Councillor Jefferson.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor Waters. It came out of my mouth about deferring, and it wasn't about your payments. It was about our decision on this. And if we can create an option D, I guess it would be at this point, so that we could have staff talk to you to discuss possible refinancing and if there's an uptake on that on your behalf, and on councils at their will if they are wanting to support that. That's what I was meaning, not deferring your payments off. Thank
you for clarifying.
And sometimes in the heat of a conversation, and thank you very much for being open and very transparent about this, is not an easy thing to discuss. But I think really it's sort of sometimes when we ask for a deferral, it's just to take a breather. Sort of everyone leaves the room, and figuratively, if you leave the room and we come back at maybe the next council meeting to further discuss this, but it gives you an opportunity to talk to staff and pick up on some of the things that we've been talking about tonight. And maybe there's some things that, and it may not be here in this recommendation, but somewhere in there's a sort of some combination of this that maybe makes sense. And this gives you an opportunity, all of us, just to take a bit of a breather that way. So that's, I've heard it out of the mouths of a few, three councillors in terms of doing a deferral. Anyways, I think we've really hashed this out quite a bit, and I think we need just to have a bit of a break on this. So I'm the way I'm looking around the room right now, there seems to be sort of that sense that deferral would be good. So do we have a, no, of course I didn't. Of course we did. Yes, go ahead. Councillor Adams.
I'm just wondering if just some sample wording potentially for a deferral. If we put ahead a motion to defer and we ask staff to report back on some additional options for the organization to restructure the debt of the organization, I think is what Councillor Jefferson had said. I would also, though, I think like to hear if this was to come back to us and that the Elora Rocks organization also kind of report back with a implementation plan for like a new governance structure. I think those two pieces might help us in any kind of deferral decision.
I'll look at your heads with it, what direction they're nodding. Yep, that the Council of the Township of Centre Wellington defer consideration of the current agreement with the Elora Rocks Hockey Club to staff to outline additional options related to restructuring the debt. Any thoughts, any suggestions on that? Well, part of this is as partly of this. Yes, go ahead.
I'm still curious, because hockey's an expensive sport. So I assume the players are paying their fair share. And I played competitive sports and was involved in horseback riding, blah, blah, blah. And people pay their fair share. So I'm just still curious why the team itself can't kind of come together. And I think there was in Cambridge or nearby where a group of hockey players bought the team and took over the finances and stuff. So I'm still just not sure why the taxpayers are going to absorb this cost, whether it's restructured or in its current way. So I'm not sure what we're gaining by deferring, I guess it's my question.
Rich, we're going to give you a bit of a break. Why don't you sit down? We're in sort of this huddle right now, so let's finish it around here. Okay, yes, Councillor Jefferson.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Waters. As we huddle up, just to respond to Councillor Wilton, my thinking on this is that Rich took it over, I believe, 2021, and that he kind of got hit, like impacted heavily with COVID and then impacted heavily with our construction at the Jefferson Elora, so that he wasn't actually able to get a rhythm going and get things kind of building and because he took the one team the first year to a championship, which is amazing. And I think that's something that's really great for Elora. So I'm of the mind that I would like to help however we can. If it's restructuring the loan and say we come back and revisit in a year, and if Rich is like, yeah, that just isn't working, then fine, we can think then. But maybe the option to just refinance to help him get his feet under himself again would be of benefit to them, then I'm willing to look at that. So.
Councillor McDonald.
I really like what Councillor Jefferson has said. Of course I did. Because it does, we're not a helping hand. We're deciding the finances here of how we spend our money. We've had many grassroots community groups come to this council, and we've done lots of stuff for them too with grants and other things. So I think it just falls in line with the decisions I've been making as a councillor here in the past. So I would really support that type of motion. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? So I'll read this and make it clear, we're not foregoing any debt. It's more like we're looking at restructuring, which is anyone who's been involved with restructuring means you're still paying it off. So, but if it gives us a chance to take a breather, this has been absorbed, it'll go out into the community, and just even having this really frank discussion here tonight, the people in the community will hear about this as well. And I think that's important. I think that's really important that the community hears this as well. So I'm going to read this again. That the Council of Township of Centre Wellington defer consideration of the current agreement with the Elora Rocks Hockey Club to staff to outline additional options related to restructuring the debt. So that's where, so that's, I'm going to put that out there. Do we have a mover for that? Okay.
Sorry, I just have a question. Should we have a time when that can be brought back to council in the motion? Like to be brought back to council at the end of May, just so that they know?
Well, I'm going to look at for staff realistically on that.
That's okay. The end of May report would be so that's not going to give us enough time. That's okay. Perhaps, we would allocate ICE in June or in July.
Our allocation is in June.
Yeah, so we would need to come back, I would say, the first week of first meeting in June at the latest so that we can allocate their ICE out for the fall.
Okay, so would you be fine with that? Okay. Does that have to be included in my,
Why don't we just say the report to council by the June. Thank you.
okay.
How about that?
Okay, I'm going to read this again so we're all very clear. But the Council of Township of Centre Wellington defer consideration of the current agreement with the Elora Rocks Hockey Club to staff to outline additional options related to the restructuring of the depth with a report to council by the June 10th meeting. Okay. I'm assuming you're a mover. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McDonald, seconder on that. Any further comments or questions? Okay, I'm going to put that to a vote. All those in favor? Those against? Okay, so that's so moved. Okay, so you have for opportunity for you to have some further discussion with staff, and then a report will come back to council by the June 10th, and further to flesh this out, and I'll give us a little bit of a breather.
This allows us to just wait and not receive payment until we get direction from council.
Thanks. Okay. And thank you, Rich, for your honesty. Okay, so we're going to move down to item, and thought you didn't have a good chance for opportunity to discuss interesting things. Item 8.2, short-term rental accommodations. So, welcome, madam.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and through you, the report before you provides recommendations and seeks council approval for the award of request for proposal 21-24. This is in regard to consulting services to address licensing of short-term accommodation rentals within the township. Recommendations are that the council award request for proposal 21-24 to McLaren Municipal Consulting Inc. at a contract price of $74,900 excluding HST, and that the project funding be updated as shown in the body of the report. The invitational proposal was issued in accordance with the township's purchasing and procurement bylaw. All vendors acknowledged receipt of the RFP, however, only one response was received. The proposal was reviewed by the selection committee and an interview was conducted. Based on the review, the selection committee is recommending award, and I'm happy to field any questions the council may have with regards to this report.
Thank you, Adam. Comments, questions? Councillor McDonald.
Are these funds outside our strategic plan? Probably this question through you, Mayor, is to Adam or Dan.
I can take a stab at it.
Sure.
Thank you for the question, Councilor McDonald, and through you, Mayor Waters. This item was not budgeted within the confines of 2024. It was a notice of motion. We reported back in December outlining the possibility of requiring funds to facilitate a consultation process through short-term accommodation rentals. So with that, the ask would be that this be funded through the General Capital Reserve as an in-year addition to the existing budget. This is all predicated on the understanding that this was brought forward in a notice of motion. Staff did report back in December, as I previously alluded to, and this is just actioning that direction.
Any other comments, Councillor Jefferson?
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Through you. In the summary of the report, it is talking about how the consultants are going to support the development of a licensing bylaw framework to address the regulation of short-term rental accommodations in the township of Centre Wellington. But when we were doing the notice of motion and we're having a lot of discussion around that, it was basically talking about exploring the best practices in other municipalities. And we had that report back that came back into December. And there was a lot of different things that I was wondering how they were going to be handled. There was issues short-term rentals being in a residential area, or there's parking, or there's if the owners are going to be required to live on site, if it's a Airbnb, just there was different things like that. And I'm wondering if the licensing bylaw framework addresses all of those issues, or if it only addresses the licensing and perhaps licensing fee or penalties or things like that. I'm just wondering how encompassing the licensing bylaw framework is. Thank you.
Through you, I think the way the consultant and staff's approach is going to be to gather public consultation from all the stakeholders first. We've done extensive research on how other municipalities have rolled this out, so we know what the issues are and what the fixes are, but what we don't know is what's best for this community. So we have the stakeholders what they see is as far as regulation, and that's all the stakeholders, whether you're an owner or whether you're a resident, a neighbor. So the public consultation is a huge part of this project, and through that public consultation, we are going to know what the regulation should be and how strict and how, whether it's setbacks, whether it's zoning, whether it's regulations on 28 days, those sorts of things. So we know the parking on site, whether there's someone available within 24 hours, all those things, we're aware of them. But what we want to hear from is the community first. And then we will draft a bylaw with that public consultation, including the staff consultation here amongst all the departments. Then we will draft the licensing bylaw to best fit what's best for the community.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, will that also incorporate Best Western? Those are also short-term stays as well.
The hotel motel industry will certainly be part of the consultation process.
Okay.
Absolutely. That was one of our asks, was the consultation be very inclusive.
Yeah, because really they're a stakeholder too, so sure. I get that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any other, Councillor Adams?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just two questions. One, would the consultation or anything involved in this proposal right now be looking into anything regarding a potential municipal accommodation tax? And then the second question would be, we do have a couple of different larger strategies on the go here. I'm just kind of curious if there's a concern with staff resources.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Adam. The questions, and through you, Mayor Waters. To your first question, no, the municipal accommodation tax was not fit within the confines of the scope of this particular engagement. That would be viewed as something else ancillary to that, whereas this is really focused on kind of the licensing and navigating the landscape within the short-term accommodation market within the confines of Centre Wellington. And for the second one, yes, you make a very valid point with regards to the number of initiatives currently on the plate for staff members to facilitate all the various initiatives that are currently underway, hence the necessity to engage the external consultant to help support.
Okay, any other, yes, Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you again, Mayor Waters. Through you, I'm just wondering also about, we have our tourism strategy that's coming up, I believe, that we're working towards. I'm just wondering if this, with the consultant, is going to be able to work hand in hand with the tourism strategy so that they're not kept separate, and that the frameworks are able to, say the MAT tax or something falls out of the tourism strategy, that can be looked at for our licensing bylaw framework, or vice versa. I'm just wondering if they're going to be looked at independently or together? Thank you.
On that, Councillor Jefferson, is that they're two independent scopes of work conducted by two different entities. And so while there may be synergy with having the two, and you could kind of dovetail some of the public consultation exercises with that, I view them as kind of separate and distinct entities, and I would hate to have to start changing scope midstream with an engagement with an external consultant to help facilitate that.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Would the consultants be aware of each other, like what the scope is of each other, so that if there's things that are falling out of the one, that they could be assumed by the other, perhaps, or that they would, as it comes to staff after as a report to council, that it can be looked at by staff to be integrated together?
Absolutely. And through you, Mayor Waters, great point and great comments. My comment back would be that I envisage the number of staff within the working groups on those two initiatives would probably be doing a lot of crossover and participating in both sides of that. So I think there's opportunity for cross-pollination in terms of making sure that we're not, duplicating efforts or other things of that nature.
Okay, any other comments, questions from council? Okay. Thank you, Adam. We have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington award request for proposal RFP 21-24 or 24 regarding short-term accommodation rentals to McLaren Municipal Consulting Inc. at the upset limit of $74,900. Excluding HST, and that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington direct staff to establish a capital project for this work to be funded from the General Capital Reserve as per report core 2024-20 dated April 29th, 2024. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton. Do I have a seconder on that? Councillor Jefferson. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Okay. So we're looking down to item 8.3, spring 2024 red tape reduction package and draft provincial planning statement. Hello, Brett.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. As you can see from my report, that on April 11th, the government dropped several new planning things for us to consider, and they're calling it the Spring 2024 Red Tape Reduction Package. It includes a number of postings on the environmental registry that do several different things. An updated proposed provincial planning statement, amendments to some regulations, changes to the Planning Act, and changes to the Development Charges Act. And municipalities have 30 days starting on April 10th to comment. So our next council meeting will be too late. So we put this report together pretty quickly. But I'm only going to highlight a few of the significant things for council. There's a few good things in the Planning Act and Development Charge changes I want to draw your attention to. With regarding development charges, the 5-year phase-in of the charge has been revoked. The cost of studies comes back in to development charges, and the timing of the date on which development charges are calculated if a project has gone through site plan approval is being reduced from 24 months to 18 months that you have to build in that time. So those are all beneficial things, something that municipalities are very critical of. Another thing that is beneficial to municipalities, the fee refund provisions that came out in Bill 109 are being revoked. So we will no longer have to worry about refunding fees if we don't approve a site plan, for example, in 60 days. So that is positive, but on the other hand, they're also making it so that we will no longer be able to require mandatory pre-consultation, which is something that we adopted specifically in order to better address the requirement to be able to approve things in the timeline. So that's going to go away, but I think that it's net positive in that we don't have that fee refund hanging over us. Another couple of important things relate to the lapsing of approvals and a new framework for sewer and water allocation, which we support. We're in the process at the staff level of creating a bylaw and a policy for the allocation of sewer and water capacity to new development. And as part of that, we would want to have kind of a use it or lose it approach where the capacity goes kind of back into the kitty if you've had it for 3 years and you haven't used it. And the province with these changes is on board with that, including that planning approvals will lapse. So if you went through site plan approval, you don't build within 3 years, then your approval is going to lapse, or a subdivision approval will lapse. Currently, we do 5 years. The province is going to reduce that to 3. So those are beneficial as well. And then in terms of additional residential unit regulations, the minister is proposing to give itself a little bit more regulation-making authority to reduce some of the perceived barriers to municipalities creating obstructions to additional dwelling units. Indications are that relates to things like lot coverage and the number of bedrooms. So some municipalities have been seeking to regulate the number of bedrooms. We weren't going in that direction, but the province is proposing to give itself more power to come up with other regulations. My response to that would be that it would have been better if the province just created province-wide regulations 2 or 3 years ago. And now I think we're on the 3rd version of additional dwelling unit regulations, but we are in the process of updating our zoning rules, and they will come through the working groups for the Economic Prosperity and Growth Committee. So we actually have draft regulations ready to go. So we don't think that this provision is going to cause us any problems proceeding, but it would just be faster if the province just made province-wide regulations. And there are a number of other jurisdictions that are doing that. So those are on the Development Charge and Planning Act changes. And then in addition to that, there's a proposed provincial planning statement. And if council will recall, in the spring of 2023, there was a previous draft. And I can say that a number of things that many municipalities found very objectionable at the time, most importantly, the provision to allow 3 severances on rural lots in prime ag, those have been removed. There was quite the backlash against that, and those has been removed. But there are a number of other things that we commented on previously that they have not changed at all. So, and a couple of things, again, it relates to housing and the lack of, in our previous comments, we had commented that they've kind of gone away from intensification and density targets and affordable housing targets. They put forth a suggestion that it's better determined locally. And so there's a little bit more, I guess, authority and latitude for us to develop our own targets. But my concern is, in the absence of a specified target, then there may be other municipalities that choose not to even try for a target. And again, in terms of affordable housing, for example, after several iterations, we still don't have a definition of affordable housing that the province has given us. After 2 or 3 years now worth of policy changes that rely on a definition of affordable housing, we still don't have one. So that's just more delay. And my next point relates to settlement areas and boundary expansions. And this is where we have the largest concern at the staff level about what's proposed. And that is settlement area boundary expansions will be permitted outside of a comprehensive review because the growth plan will go away. So there won't be such a beast anymore as a municipal comprehensive review. So, and then in addition to that, the province is proposing through the Planning Act changes to eliminate the provision that mean there can't be third-party appeals of the local decision on urban boundary expansion. And we think that that'll obviously, in our circumstance where we know there are all these requests, but a much smaller need than the amount of requests. Our concern is that we just end up making our decision on our future urban boundary only to have it appealed by, you know, the people who are not successful in having. And so we anticipate that there will be either, you know, pressure to expand the boundary even more than what our land needs work has created. And then the burden of having that being able to appeal, which under current Planning Act provisions can't be appealed. So that is a large concern and just brings back some of our concern with the previous draft, that it's just making it easier to sprawl and expand the urban boundary. It's a little less easy than it was in the previous draft, but it's still opening the door to constant requests to expand the urban boundary. And then I want to point it out, because we do have battery energy storage systems proposed in our community, that they have now made a specific definition of energy supply and battery energy storage systems. Except I also want to highlight that one of the things that we have a concern about in the language is they've made reference to battery energy storage and ground-mounted solar in the definition of on-farm diversified uses. And they've loaded that with the term land extensive energy facilities are permitted on prime ag only as on-farm diversified uses. So, but the very definition of on-farm diversified uses and the province's own guidelines on farm diversified uses use the term limited in scale. So we have a little bit concern at the staff level that we're going to be left to interpret, well, what does land extensive mean and what does limited in scale mean? We've created zoning regs based on provincial guidance that limit the amount of land that an on-farm diversified use can take up. And the battery energy proposals that we have in front of us would exceed what I would say was limited in scale. So I think that's an area of conflict that if the province is going to put things in the policy statement to address, then they need to kind of clean up that conflict in the language. So we'll report that to the ministry. And I also want to point out that in our last version, in the 23 version of the policy statement, the staff report at that time talked about the impact on what it does to the protection for cultural heritage resources. And so those comments have gone forward, but there's nothing different in the new draft. So the province hasn't done anything in the new policy statement to address our comments that were critical of the cultural heritage protection provisions in the previous draft. So those are things that we're looking for council direction to be able to submit comments in time for the deadline that will follow the framework that we've outlined here. But we also acknowledge there's still, a couple more weeks in the deadline, and we might come up with new comments that aren't in this report as we get to review things in more detail, and we maybe hear from other municipalities and what kind of concerns they're raising. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett, for putting that together. I know that there's been a lot of extra effort to do that, given sort of the tight time frame. Anyways, I'd like to open up for councils for questions. Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Thank you, Brett, for the report. And a couple questions that go together. They're on the urban areas and settlement areas and boundary expansions. I was just curious, given your reading of the PPS, if how you think something like a countryside line, or does Center Wellington have any opportunity to put in some more kind of aggressive policies to protect farmland? Not aggressive, but assertive policies that would protect farmland, such as what's been done in Waterloo region or something like that?
I would say I don't think that there's anything that would prohibit that. I think obviously you can only do it in an official plan amendment, which itself is amendable, right? So you can do it, but sooner or later you're going to hit that line and maybe it's going to come back that, well, should we expand? But I don't see that there's anything that would prevent us from doing something similar.
Great, thank you. And the reason I ask, I think what we've seen happen across the provinces with the Greenbelt and the Waterloo region's countryside line is it develops a public awareness of the situation, and it develops that kind of public buy-in that the lands on either side of those boundaries are given importance for the purpose of farmland. So I'm just curious if that would be an important step forward that Center Wellington could take, is to actually look at our boundary and the land needs assessment that we've commissioned from Watson and say, well, here will be some logical places where a countryside line type of policy might make sense. So just curious what your thoughts are on something like that.
That is something that we've discussed internally. Yes.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. In this report, will it make it easier for our committee of adjustment? And the only reason why I ask is I recently attended one, and we have a lot of people adding on apartments, extra living spaces, in-law suites on their own properties, which I think is great for integrating families too. And I heard one of the adjudicators reference Bill 23, even though it doesn't exist anymore. It's what, Bill 189, 85. Will this make it easier for them? That it won't have to come to the committee?
Yes, we've had a number of variances in the last couple of years that relate to the changes to the Planning Act culminating in Bill 23 and possibly 109, give direction for us to allow 3 units on every lot. And previous versions of that made reference to the relationship between kind of the original dwelling and the subsequent dwelling. So our current zoning regs kind of cap the size of an apartment unit that's added to a house. And under the current provincial rules, which are, I guess, what's in Bill 185 is to make it even easier to implement additional unit regulations. So when we make the changes that we are envisioning, it will reduce the number of variances that are needed. So,
okay. Oh, that's good.
Councillor Evoy.
Thank you to you, sir. I'm still, every time you speak, Brad, I seem to learn something. Councillor Wilton spoke about the country lines, so I'm probably going to use less formal language than I probably should. But as we look forward, if we put some policies in place or tighten some of our own regulations from a municipal lens, will that help to negate some of the punishment and rewards that are being discussed as we go forward from a financial lens from the province as we go forward? Would that help us to ensure that we land on the right side of that?
Well, I think the province is doing away with the penalty, I guess, in terms of we're no longer required to refund fees. So I think the punishment part isn't there. Again, the countryside line is something that the region of Waterloo adopted. So to say, here's how much land we need now. In the future, we could envision that through subsequent urban expansion, we might grow out even farther, but then that's it. And it was supposed to be a hard line. There's some things happening now that maybe suggested that wasn't such a hard line, but that's the idea. I don't know any other municipalities other than Waterloo Region that have done it, but I haven't researched the topic. And I don't think there's anything in what's being proposed by the province now that would preclude us from doing that. Obviously, the changes that the province are making might make it harder to stick to that line if you did create one, because developers will be able to apply outside of an OP review to expand the urban boundary. And if you say no, they can appeal.
So what's it mean? A follow-up to that, with the mayor's permission, is I'm learning still about how you guys write these letters to the province. And I heard you mention that you'll speak to other municipalities. If we have a collective voice with other municipalities throughout the province, does it make it more likely to be heard? And have you done that? And will you do that when we write the letter?
I think the province expects municipalities to comment individually. We know that the other organizations like AMO and my Ontario Professional Planners Institute will comment. They may not have the same lens that we have with the local issue. Like, for example, the battery energy storage is something that speaks to us because we know that we have two, and council have given support resolutions to two, but both of which are proposed on land that's prime ag. So we have a particular interest, and I don't like the larger collective organizations, like say through AMO, that might not be as an important issue that they might raise. So I think we just put in our own comments. We know that the County of Wellington will put in comments. They'll probably be similar to ours. And we know that municipalities are coming. The danger or the challenge is we haven't been given a ton of time, 30 days. So we've not seen other municipalities comment reports. Like, for example, the county staff report is still their planning committee's May the 9th, I think, and they probably will have to get permission to send those comments right away without going to council, or they'll miss the deadline. And that's the challenge that we face.
Okay, any other comments, questions from council? Okay. Oh, do you have one more? Yep.
One comment. Just wanted to thank you for putting this table together. And I noticed the one text in bold. I'm assuming that's kind of going to be the focus of some of your comments. That was into the settlement area boundary expansions piece.
Yeah, that's in bold for a reason.
That'll be
Yes.
kind of, yeah. Okay, perfect. So thank you, Brett.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brett, and staff for putting that together for us in a short time frame. So hold on a second here. I'll just move this so I can read the. Okay, so we have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington authorize Managing Director of Planning and Development to submit township comments regarding the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing Spring 2024 Red Tape Reduction Package and Draft Provincial Planning Statement. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor Jefferson, any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you. Number 9, notice of motions. Number 10, motions where notices have been given. 11, confirmatory bylaw. We have a bylaw to confirm the actions of council. Recommendation that the bylaw 2024-16 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held April 20. Be introduced a first and second and third time and passed in open council. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Jefferson, seconder on that. Councillor Craddock, for the conversation or anything on that? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? So moved. And finally, item number 12, adjournment. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you, everybody, everyone. Thank you for all the good conversation, and we'll see you all the next time.